Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. Today we're continuing our dive into the heroes of For Honor, analyzing them for their lore, historical inspirations, playstyle, design, and overall feel. My opinions on characters can often shift and change over time, and today we're talking about a hero who is definitely one who has changed my perspective and opinions more than once. Today we are talking about the Bleed Queen herself, Peacekeeper.
When wars end, it is the silent blade that keeps the peace. But when wars rage, a peacekeeper's work is never done. Quick, lethal. They can win a fight before their enemy even knows they are there. Dancers of death with dual blades for dancing partners. Selected from the desperate, the humbled, or the devoted. Sworn to secrecy by unbreakable oaths. What they know can destroy legends or create them.
It's not always the frontline soldiers who make the difference in war. A subtle word or a secret kept can hold more weight than an entire army. Peacekeepers are Ashfeld's quiet assassins and information gatherers. To be a peacekeeper isn't just to be a skilled warrior, but also to be a guardian of truths left unsaid. Peacekeepers are recruited from various places. Sometimes they're devoted women who offer their services to the Knights of Ashfeld from their piety and loyalty. Others are downtrodden and desperate women who turn to the life of a peacekeeper because they have nothing else which they can rely. Wherever they come from, the role of a peacekeeper is threefold. First, they are the silent watchers in the dark, observing Ashfeld as watchful predators. They watch for signs of treachery, chaos, or heresy, and then they purge it. Second, they are the guardians of secrets. Ashfeld is not without quiet sins and shames, and some of these are meant to be guarded and unsaid, meant to remain locked away. The peacekeepers are required to not only know these truths, but guard them closely and silence any who would dare to expose them. And third, they are the assassins of heathens. In times of war, when foreign foes would threaten Ashfeld, peacekeepers are deployed behind enemy lines to sabotage defenses and slit the throats of leaders and generals. Quick and lethal, a peacekeeper can appear and disappear without anyone even knowing they were there. In fact, these women are so reclusive and secretive, even their historical influence eluded me for some time, but I'll share my thoughts on that in a minute. To put it simply, Peacekeeper is a character that I absolutely hated starting out because I couldn't figure out how to play them and I struggled against playing against them. But over time, I came to love them. And one thing I love about them is their placement in For Honor. Who they are in For Honor is really, really cool. These really awesome assassin characters in the Knights who use dual blades to fight their battles, hiding under hoods. It really, really piqued my interest based on just who they were supposed to be. But what are they based on? Let's get into the history. Now, for a full breakdown of my thoughts on the historical influences of the Peacekeeper, I would recommend watching my Heroes in History video, but I'll briefly summarize my thoughts here, and I might even go a step further for you. I believe the Peacekeepers are heavily based on the Hashashin, the assassin order of the Middle East during the Crusading era. Now, there are various similarities between the two forces, and I draw my references to them in my Heroes in History videos, such as the use of specialized daggers, their attachment to knowledge and secrets, and their close, if unconventional, relationship with the Crusader states. But what I don't mention in that video is that I think Peacekeepers are also based heavily on inquisitorial agents during the age of the Inquisition. During the late Middle Ages, when the Inquisition was in practice around Europe, agents of the Inquisition were deployed to not only root out heresies, but to maintain peace through higher knowledge and education. While they weren't warriors necessarily, they were keepers of peace, which I feel is fitting to a certain degree. Imagine something along the lines of Inquisitors from, say, Warhammer 40,000, and you may kind of see what I mean. And to be perfectly frank, the Peacekeepers don't have a very good and direct reference to draw from. I actually had to think quite a bit about this, because when you really look at it, the Peacekeepers don't exist historically. You don't have women assassins in ancient Knight or European history, but you do have the Hashashin organization, which was the inspiration for the Assassin's Creed franchise. And you also have the Inquisition, which were meant to guard secrets, maintain order, maintain peace, and root out heresies, which I would argue a Peacekeeper is also meant to do. As the trailer says, that in peace, it is the silent blade that, in times of peace, it is the silent blade that keeps the peace. That's Peacekeeper's job. So they aren't just warriors in times of war, they're also those there to maintain order, which I think says a lot about what they're meant to be. But with all that said, just because we can't get a clear idea of what they're based on historically doesn't mean we don't have a pretty good idea of how you can design them. And Peacekeeper's got some go-to designs. Let's get into it. For a long time, Peacekeeper was considered one of the smaller members of the For Honor cast. All of her outfits have her wearing light armor, usually of cloth, gambeson, and a little bit of chainmail. She usually has a hood over her helmet, which masks her face, and she carries a short sword in one hand and a dagger in the other, and she wears greaves on her feet for leg protection. However, during the Marching Fire update, Peacekeeper got an update where she now has various outfits that show her face. And it is a very pretty face. For the most part, I like these designs more as they show the character under the hood, and I've always kind of preferred that. But there are some made better than others. For example, one head has a long braid hanging out from a hole at the top of her hood, which looks really weird. I don't know why you would do that. Why would you let a braid hang out of your hood? For one thing, someone can grab that in the midst of battle and use that against you. Why not just keep your hair in your hood? Very weird. Then there's the Thorn Casket set, which looks good design-wise, but the cloth is perma green. You can't change the color of it, which really stinks. If you like the look of it, but you want to change the color, you're out of luck. You're kind of limited with that one, so that one's a no-go for me. But after a long time of really playing with Peacekeeper's looks and designs and figuring out what I like and dislike, I finally managed to create 4 builds for PK, and here they are. We've got Nora Arenalius, Kiyumi, which is Japanese for hope, and you may recognize that name. My own mom, and again, it goes back to that video where me and my community were trying to create my family in For Honor, and we made my mom into a Peacekeeper. Long story there. And finally, Miria. Miria the Peacekeeper. I haven't made a legend about her yet, but I might. And those are my 4 designs. Peacekeeper is actually really, really fun to design with and play with because the different masks and hoods that you can get out of her and the right kind of coloring that you can do with it can make a lot of really neat, really creative designs. Peacekeeper has a lot of opportunity and potential in terms of what you can make her into. Now, moving away from her overall design and going into executions, if you want to hear my full breakdown of Peacekeeper's executions, go check out my Executions Graded series where I give her grades and you can find out what that is. But I can at least tell you my favorite and least favorite execution. It took me a while because I like so many of Peacekeeper's executions, but my favorite is Nightingale Guillotine. I really had to think about this one, but I really like Nightingale Guillotine. Taking the sword and ramming it into the shoulder to hold them in place while you just knee them in the chest, and then in the face, and then just spin around and just take their head off with one swing. So badass, so cool. I love the way it's done. It's very solid, and I don't know, to me, it just looks really awesome. I think it's just a cool way to hold an opponent in place and just take them down. And again, I know that there are some people who are going to say, oh, but what about this execution or what about that execution? Believe me, it was a hard pick. But I was looking through all my builds, and I found that with the majority of my builds with Peacekeeper, I always add Nightingale Guillotine. That says something. That says that it's one that sticks out to me every time. So it had to be my favorite. As for my least favorite, this one wasn't as hard. I'm not a big fan of instant regrets. Instant Regrets to me is an execution that's way too long for a joke that isn't that funny. And I know what it is. It's a reference to a movie. I can't remember the name of the movie. All I know is it has Jim Carrey in it. But it's a really goofy scene, and it's really dumb looking. I'm going to be honest. The reaction of the victim as they just look at their leg that's been stabbed and go, oh, oh, with their hands like, oh, what's happening? Like, are you kidding? Like, you've been stabbed. React to it. Fall over. If I were stabbed in the leg, I would fall over trying to pull the damn thing out. Just not going, oh, what? And then Peacekeeper just kind of watching and laughing without her weapons in her hands in the middle of a war situation. This one never looked good to me. I never thought this one was a good one, so I almost never use it. So that would have to be my least favorite execution. And those are pretty much my thoughts on the designs for Peacekeeper. However, I know what you guys really want to talk about. You want to talk about the moveset. You want to talk about how you play Peacekeeper. Well, I think it's time we got into the moveset. Alright, so going over Peacekeeper's moveset. Now, I've had a few people tell me that Peacekeeper is either too simple or too complicated to learn, and if I'm being real honest, I lean more on the side of simple. Once you understand how Peacekeeper works and her overall abilities, you'll realize that she's one of the most easy assassins to get the hang of, and one of the most fun. Peacekeeper's whole game plan is to get her opponent bleeding. And the reason you want to do this is not only because bleeding an opponent makes it easier to whittle down their health, but it gives Peacekeeper access to more pressure. So let's go into what she's capable of. Peacekeeper is capable of a 3-hit combo if she does light, light, heavy. So light, light, heavy. She cannot do... Hold on. She cannot do 3 lights, and she cannot do 2 heavies. She cannot do more than 2 heavies. So you are capable of a 3-hit combo if you go light, light, heavy. Now, here's where things get kind of interesting. Peacekeeper has access to a bleed capability as a soft feint. Bro, lower your guard to the right or left, please. By doing a heavy attack from any direction, you can throw the light button by soft feinting it into a top bleed attack. This can also be done with a zone. Now, why do you want to do this? A big reason. Because you'll notice that when Peacekeeper gets her opponent bleeding, her final heavy attack is unblockable. This means that while your opponent is bleeding, Peacekeeper's second heavy comes out as an unblockable. When my opponent is not bleeding, it's a normal attack. So you want to keep your opponent bleeding so that you constantly always have this mix-up pressure. Now, Peacekeeper has a lot of ways to get into the bleed. For one thing, her guard break is one of the strongest in the game. Once you get your opponent in the guard break, if you hit the light attack button 3 times consecutively, you will be able to do a light attack that does constant bleed damage and does a lot of bleed. Further, notice how when I do a zone attack, the second attack of the zone is unblockable. The zone is going to be your best friend with Peacekeeper, so keep that in mind. Now, if my brother will come a little closer. Here's something cool that I think a lot of people sleep on. You can do all 3 bleeds if you want to, but if you're near a wall, you can go 1, 2, kick. Oh, I was too far away. Let's try that again. 1, 2, kick. And then fly forward to do a guaranteed heavy attack. So I would definitely recommend doing that if you're near a wall. Give them 2 stabs, kick them into the wall, then leap at them to do a guaranteed heavy. Now, here's the next part to know about Peacekeeper. Any heavy attack that you throw, this means a dodge heavy, or a dash heavy, or a normal heavy, all can be followed up immediately with a guaranteed light attack that does bleed. By doing this, you will constantly be able to abuse your opponent and keep that going. Plus, by throwing that light, it allows you to go into your next chain. And you can just keep that beauty going. So that is the beauty of Peacekeeper right there, constantly being able to apply bleed. Now here's something else cool that you can do. Let's say that your opponent is bleeding and you do a dodge attack. Watch this. Oh, let me get him bleeding real quick. You can do an attack and then follow up with a unblockable heavy follow-up after the dodge attack. So again, you have a lot of pressure you can play as Peacekeeper. What I like to do is get them bleeding, then start that unblockable, but then quickly soft feint it into a guard break. So I can throw it, or apply that pressure on the wall. As you can see, you have a lot of opportunity and capability with Peacekeeper. Now, another thing we need to talk about with Peacekeeper is she's an assassin. That means she has a deflect, like all assassins do. Now, if you don't remember what a deflect is, if my opponent throws an attack, I can parry it, sure, or as an assassin, I can dodge into the direction of the attack at the same moment it would land when the parry indicator flashes, and not only will I evade damage, but if I hit the right input, I'll be able to do a counterattack. With Peacekeeper, it's a light attack and it does bleed, so if my brother would please attack me with a heavy. One more time, please. And the cool thing is, one more time, it allows you to flow right into your next move. So that deflect is a really strong deflect from Peacekeeper, and it allows you to keep that going. Now, let's talk about a little trick. This is what a lot of people call the Wexra move, okay? And Wexra will probably talk about that in a minute. Oops, did I give away too much? Ooh, sorry about that. So this little move is kind of unique. Peacekeeper's zone attack can be soft feinted into a dodge, right? Look at that. But did you know that you can do it forward too? In fact, watch this. Many people will not see this move coming, and the reason why is because they expect Peacekeeper to either A, guard break you, B, whiff the attack, or C, soft feint into a light that does bleed. But the soft feint that does bleed is actually quicker than that dash forward heavy, which means they'll try to parry you too soon if they expect the top light. This move lands way more often than you'd think. So that zone is incredibly useful. Didn't I tell you, you're going to want to rely on your zone when it comes to PK. Do not, I repeat, do not sleep on that zone. Now, the last thing I'll tell you about PK before I finish up is this. This is a move that I would never, ever, ever recommend. So let's get my opponent bleeding. Like I said, you can soft feint any heavy attack into a top light bleed. Never do it from the top. And I'll tell you why. Because if you do it from the top, my brother perfectly demonstrated why. Because that top attack is going to come down at the exact same moment a heavy would. So either way, the opponent will time the parry perfectly every time. So never, ever, 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 and I'll say this 3 more times, ever, 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 do a top attack, soft feint into bleed. Do not do it. If you're going to do it from the top, do a guard break at least, okay? Please don't be stupid. All right, because I've been stupid like that and I've made that mistake. So now you should basically understand how to play Peacekeeper. She's a very fun character and pretty easy to understand. So always remember, use zones frequently, apply bleed, get that pressure going, try to get them into a wall so that you can get a free heavy attack off of them, and just keep applying move after move. Really pepper them with a lot of blade attacks and make sure that the bleed stays constant, and you should find that Peacekeeper is actually a lot of fun to play. But I'm just a casual. What if I told you that you could get some advice from the PK Queen herself? That's right, one of my best friends in the For Honor community, and the actual #1 PK in the world, the first person to ever reach Rep 90 with Peacekeeper, Wexra herself, has agreed to offer some tips and tricks on Peacekeeper. So, Wexra, if you wouldn't mind.
Hey everybody, so Raven and I gave me the very important task of giving y'all PK tips. Now, Peacekeeper, obviously you can play her in 1s, 2s, 4s, all of that. I will say she is at her strongest in 1v1s, but I also love playing her 3-4. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give y'all a tip for each mode. So let's go ahead and get our PK bot over here. I think the first thing you guys really need to focus on as a new intermediate or expert PK player is understanding exactly what her bleed does. So very quickly, I'm gonna go ahead and check my bot, make sure that the opponent health is on. When you're in the training mode, you can do all of these settings, test out moves. I find it very useful. I'm gonna give her a little bit of bleed here. So her lights When you have bleed applied or enhanced, what this means is you can continue attacking against a light and it won't bounce off like you see here. I'll go ahead and show that again. Enhanced lights mean you can go ahead and keep chaining into your mix and do basically whatever you want here. This is very useful against some heroes with All Guard, for example. What you can do is, now this is a little risky depending on who you're fighting, but you can go for something like this. For example, let's say this was a BP hiding in Bulwark. What you can do is you can continue to attack them, and when they go ahead and get baited out, like go for a flip, you can continue throwing your heavy unblockable and bait them out. Surprisingly, this works a lot more than you would expect. You're like, oh, they're gonna punish you for the light. You'd be shocked how often people actually don't punish that. Okay, wait, maybe not. Now with the lights out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about her finisher heavies. So most people know that when Peacekeeper gets bleed, that means all of her finisher heavy becomes unblockable. This also works for the zone. As you can see, throwing the full zone is usually unpredictable, but I feel like it works way more often than you would expect. A lot of people off of the zone have a tendency to go for like a dodge forward, a GB, something like this. And I feel like throwing the full zone, which does do a good bit of damage, is a bit unpredictable. And I've watched it, if people do a early or late or kind of like mistimed dodge in general, it will track you. Now with her enhanced special stuff out of the way, I do want to talk about two very big dual no-nos for PK. I catch new PKs doing this and it literally blows my mind. Never ever feint a top heavy into dagger cancel. It is the worst thing you can do as a Peacekeeper. It literally has the same timing as a heavy parry, and you'll just give them a free punish. Also, throwing the zone into dagger cancel. I do not recommend this. I find that her animation here, when she actually goes for the dagger cancel, is so blatantly obvious, you can borderline react to it. And the whole thing with Peacekeeper is her dagger cancel that you see here is unreactable. It is it's one of the best moves in her kit that gives her access to literally all of the special properties we just talked about. So those are a couple things on duels to do and to avoid. I quickly went ahead and booted up a custom to show y'all exactly what Peacekeeper can do in team fights. So as you can see here, I'm attacking the Medjay and using the bleed applied to him to actually throw unblockable heavies onto the Shinobi who doesn't have bleed. This is a very useful skill for PK in team fights, because what it does is it means you only have to get bleed on one person in a team fight to go ahead and use her bonuses on other people. The biggest issue with PK in team fights, I feel like, is actually getting access to her bleed. And if you're able to confirm this, let's say with crossbow, your teammate guard breaks and you throw a heavy followed up by a bleed light, or just dagger cancel into someone who isn't really paying attention to you, what you can do is then use that to go ahead and you'll throw, let's say, your enhanced light at an enemy affected with bleed. Then you can throw an unblockable externally focusing on someone else, and the person actually close to you will not be able to parry that attack. As you can see, Medjay is slightly angry at me for showing this off. I'm gonna see if I can bait another bot over here real quick. Here is another example of this in practice. So here I'm gonna apply bleed on the Medjay bot and then use it to attack the BP. As you can see, the Medjay is taking damage and I'm locked onto the BP. So this Black Prior could not, he was not in range or even looking at me to parry my attacks. And the Medjay could not pair them because they were focused onto the Black Prior. So that's a good tip right there on how to use PK in 4v4s. Just wanted to say thank you so much to Raven Knight for having me, and I hope you guys learned a little bit from my PK tips and tricks. Let me take it back over to you, Raven.
Thank you so much, Wexra, for all that you had to say there. I really appreciate it. Guys, Wexra really is the PK queen of For Honor. Even though she's been dipping into Virtuoso a lot more, she has not lost her touch with PK, and she taught me so much about how to play PK, so I owe her a great deal. Go check her out on Twitch and give her a follow and a sub if you're feeling generous, and check out her YouTube channel as well. Both links will be in the description. Thank you again, Wexra, for your help, and thank you all for watching this video. What do you guys think about Peacekeeper? Did you enjoy this video? Did you enjoy watching this? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy, and as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care.
Yes! Baby boy! Oh! Time freeze. Wall in that back. No, sir! Yeah! Dude, I've been getting so much better with PK.